Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I did notice that I do have some new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining our family and for watching. And if you are new and you're watching this video and haven't subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe. This is a safe space where we can talk about and learn about each other's journeys, and I hope that my journey will be able to help you in some way. One of the reasons I decided to start this channel is to share my journey. I benefited a lot from other YouTubers who shared their journey, and I figured I would share mine. I'm not an expert vlogger, as you may have noticed. I just take off the phone camera and just video myself. You see me going through my, that's my IVF look, as I call it. And I upload new videos every Tuesday. And every once in a while I'll get cleaned up like I did today and be able to maybe share some of the conversations that others are having with me privately, and I'm reaching out to ask in the hope that it might help those of you who are watching. Today's topic is difficult. Questions we get asked a lot is how we navigated the 12 cycles. And people get really surprised at the multiple failures, particularly if they have not watched the videos. Now, I do have in the fertility vlogs, I've journaled each of the cycles, all the treatments we tried, and all, what the journey was like. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at that. But just for you to know, we did go through a lot of failure, and people often ask just how we're able to move on. And so just wanted to kind of share with you some strategies that might be useful. The first strategy that really worked for us, this is one of those strategies that eventually came in handy, but at the beginning I did not want to do it. But I did it because my husband, who's my support, said it's important we just face some realities and discuss the plan, right? Because as you go through this process, there's finances involved, and you just kind of want to know, okay, where are we headed? What's the plan? Develop a pathway to baby. For some people, the pathway is just one, and for other people, there's multiple pathways. For us, there was multiple pathways. It was a genetic egg, donor, then embryo donation, which is when a couple that has been privileged enough to be successful at IVF has extra embryos and they donate them. And then we had looked into, if I was not maybe able to carry a pregnancy, then surrogacy. We looked at, there's two types of surrogacy, gestational and traditional. We had looked at gestational surrogacy, which is when the surrogate carries my egg and my husband's little guys. Traditional is when the surrogate uses their own egg and your husband or partner's little guy. So we had looked into gestational in case that would be the case for me. And then we looked into foster care, and then we also would put down in our worksheet adoption. So that was the pathway to baby for us. And so again, like I said, it was a struggle doing it at the beginning because you don't want to face that reality early on. But eventually, I remember there was a time I was happy that I did it. The second strategy that really worked for us, and that may work for you as you manage multiple IVF failures, is conducting research and completely understanding your diagnosis. The research piece was fundamental in helping us manage failure, because that was how I found my doctor, because I actually let go of 2 IVF doctors in order to work with the one who eventually then ended up being successful because of the research I did. We were not candidates for IVF. In fact, it was a 97% failure chance. And then when we did research, we discovered mini IVF, and that ended up being the option that we selected to go for. Now, as far as diagnosis, it really helped me, because I remember there was a time when I really didn't understand my diagnosis. I found that I was comparing myself more with other people who are being successful in the journey. Like, some people did IUIs and they were successful. Some people, underwent whatever their fertility issue was, like a blocked tube, and they did IVF one time and they were successful. But when I understood my diagnosis and then found out what people with my diagnosis went through in terms of how many cycles of IVF, and this was the data that my doctor was able to provide me, then it was my journey and I made peace with that. So just a tip I'd share with you just in case you find that that might be helpful for you as well. The third strategy that I'd like to share with you, this one, I had to write this down because this is one of my favorite life coaches, Oprah Winfrey. She, in one of her shows where one of her guests went through a traumatic experience, they discussed the 30-minute rule, where you're so devastated, you're so tormented, and you know that you don't want it to consume you, and so you give yourself a set amount of time where you're gonna cry, and then you move on to something else. And so I tried that, and I found a lot of peace with it, particularly when the cycles were becoming failures back to back. And another thing that Oprah did say that I think would be very motivational for you to hear is, she always said, whenever you have trouble in your life, ask yourself, what is it here to teach me? What is this issue here to teach me? And I remember there was multiple cycles where I started using that approach, because all of a sudden I was learning about my body, I was learning about what fertility really was. The experience was really teaching me a lot of what I didn't know, and it helped me then become more open to whatever the next path was. And so hopefully you will think about that, and that might come in handy for you as you navigate the failures. The other strategy that really worked for us, and I would say this is really fundamental, particularly if your diagnosis mandates you to be patient and take your time, is celebrating the milestones. And what made me realize how important that is reflecting back on my first mini IVF cycle, the very first one. We were so excited just to be able to do IVF, because remember that it wasn't an option for us. And even more excited when the egg actually fertilized. And then it made it on the first day, and it made it to the second day, and then it made it to Morula, which is, I believe, the third day, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, so correct me if Morula doesn't mean that, but I remember it, either way, it made it to Morula, and then it arrested, and that was an IVF failure. But I'll never forget how celebrating those milestones felt. I was excited about it, and then it gave us more information about moving on to the next cycle. And so it's important to have those milestones, because then when you look at your whole journey, it becomes a journey of growth and learning, and it doesn't just all become like something that you grieve or something that is a sad part of your life moving forward. The other tip I'd like to share with you is, and this is from another life coach, and I stole this quote, but I loved it because it helped me through IVF. A delay is not a denial, Ian Lovasant. With my diagnosis, it required time. And I remember I was in the hotel room, and one of my friends was having their baby shower, and they had gotten pregnant quickly. And I had just gone through an egg retrieval that was unsuccessful. So I knew that it was going to be a failed IVF cycle. And I was in LA in my hotel room attending that shower through Zoom. And I was devastated, as many of you who go through this journey and failure often can just relate to and empathize. And then I remember I quickly challenged myself to go back into thinking, you know what, my diagnosis wasn't going to work that quickly, and I just needed time, and I needed multiple cycles, and it kind of helped me get back into good spirits. So I just wanted to share that with you as well, and hopefully that can help. The other tip I'd like to share with you is about how we place blame on our bodies as women, and we use quotes like, my body's failing me, and I remember feeling that way at some point. You get really defeated through this journey, guys, that sometimes you just are looking for answers everywhere, and you're frustrated. You don't really mean it, but it's just how you feel. And I remember I was feeling that way, and then my husband really challenged me to relanguage myself, because the way he looked at it was my body was doing its job because it was telling us something. There was times when my body was affirming everything that the doctors had said. My eggs are 43 years old. They're behaving that way. And my body is allowing me to see it through this failed multiple attempts. And I remember honoring my body that way and just cheering it on, knowing that it's doing the best that it could. It's pumping this 43-year-old eggs and getting them to day 1 and day 2, doing the best. Cheering it on is something that I decided to do. So honor your body, guys. And most importantly, keep a journal for the cycles that you go through, what they're telling you. And at the end, face that and decide on next steps. So hopefully that is a tip that you could use as well. Which leads me into another strategy that really worked for us, which is that whole philosophy of it's okay to do your best and then move on. It is perfectly okay for you to do the best that you can. For some people, the best that you can is 1 cycle. For others, the best that you can is 2 cycles. I remember watching one YouTuber called Laura Laws. She was in her 40s as well. And she did 1 IVF cycle and it did not work because she did not do an ERA. And she learned from that cycle, and when she tried it again the second time, she was successful and she did an ERA test. And I remember I was so happy for her. But it's stories like that. Some people, everybody's journey is different. For us, because it was mini IVF, we were able to do it 12 times. And it's just one of those things where, and you'll see at the end of our journey, we made peace with it and we moved on, and we ended up obviously resulting in a pregnancy, as you guys have seen. But I remember at the time of going through the failures, we had decided that either way, when we were going to be done and when we were going to stop. So again, setting those goals, and just if you end up with this journey, just knowing you did the best that you can, it's also a way for you to celebrate the work that you've done. There's one person that is really, really key, and one who I followed early on when I was going through failure because I didn't know it was going to work. Her name is Jessica Hepburn. I'm going to put her video link below. But Jessica Hepburn went through either 9 or 10 cycles of IVF. She had 1 pathway to baby, so when it did not work, she decided to live a child-free life. And she's just amazing, and how she moved on. And I looked at that as a source of hope, because I knew that this journey was not promised. I could do 12 cycles and not be successful. And so I wanted to kind of see what her journey was like. This was all before my pregnancy. And I also started paying attention to other YouTubers, like Simply Tanika is another great YouTuber, because she had multiple pathways to baby. So when the first pathway didn't work, she moved on to donor. And then there's Uniquely Ursi as well, who's in her journey right now using donor. But again, in this community, in YouTube, the fertility community, there's always motivations out there depending on your journey. And so hopefully that tip is helpful. The other strategy I will share is something that most of you already know. IVF is a journey of hope and faith. Your family sometimes will not understand. Your friends will not understand if they're not struggling through it. There's no guarantee. Like I often say, it's like going to a car dealership, paying for the car, leaving the dealership without the car, having paid for it. It's just a very painful experience. But that, I think, folks, is one of the reasons why I actually do think IVF is a journey of hope and faith, which ends up being a spiritual journey. I tend to be religious. If you're not religious, you may believe in good vibes, positive vibrations, the law of attraction, same thing. We go through this journey blind. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're so excited with this hope that we have. And if you have hope, then things open up and you think differently, because what you think about, you bring about. And so I cannot tell you enough how, if you are a religious person, pray to God, involve Him. And I remember we would pray before each and every IVF cycle. And we would thank God for the lessons for the IVF cycles that did not work, the multiple cycles that did not work. It was obviously very difficult, but we kept hope as an essential part of this process. The last tip I will share with you that will hopefully inspire you or motivate you as you manage IVF failure is just knowing that there are different parts of your life. My husband and I mean, we met later in life. I was 41 years old, so I had lived a child-free life for many years. We had gone skiing, we had gone on vacations, we would go to the fair, would go to museums, art galleries, would go to parties, we would go out to enjoy ourselves. We would, life is happening. And I think if you are like us and you have to go through a long journey of IVF, for us, I think our journey took us 1.5, almost 2 years. I'm so glad that I kept reminding myself to have a balance, because the balance will help, one, your relationship, because it does take a toll on your relationship when you are going through multiple cycles of failed IVF. You will break down, you will be depressed, you will be seeing your therapist. I'm telling you, it's a journey. And I promise you, when you add this as a major dimension of your life, but not the only thing, it does help. We have to keep reminding ourselves of that. Of course, I know I needed to, particularly when I first started mini IVF, I went through 5 failed IVF attempts back to back in a row. And I went through a failed transfer, frozen transfer, and a failed fresh transfer together. There was one cycle where I was going to do a frozen transfer of a 3-day embryo, and I was also going to do a fresh transfer from the egg retrieved that made it to the 3rd day. The egg ran away, so there was no egg, and the frozen transfer didn't work. And that was part of my 5 fail. I mean, man, I could talk about this forever. So painful and so hard and difficult. And so, but it is important, guys, to keep that balance as well, particularly if your journey is going to be a long one. I promise you're not going to regret it. All right, folks. Well, those are the tips. Maybe there's 1, 2, or 3 that will help. Maybe none will help. Maybe it's just important that you hear that you're not alone, and that failures do happen, and people move on, and there's different ways that you can manage it. And so I'll stop the video there. But yeah, so hopefully that was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. If there's any videos you would like me to do that addresses some of these issues as we navigate infertility, I am happy to address those as well. Please feel free to add those in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.